Yes. Should be coming up any moment. Hopefully.
Yeah, there we go.
Is it? Okay, there it is.
I sees it.
You sees it? That's beautiful.
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing. Sorry for the tech issues, you guys. We're dealing with tech issues and internet stuff and all that stuff. Hi, chat room.
Yep. I'm
Look
just glad
who's
my
back.
computer
She's
can
right
restart.
there.
Yep.
Hello.
What'd you need to do, Marcona?
I was just saying I'm glad that my computer does a quick restart because it used to take like 10, 15 minutes to restart.
Same.
Now it does it in like 30 seconds. I'm so happy about that.
Yay.
The beauty of having drives of, quick reboots.
Yeah. I'm never going away from solid state drives ever again. I love it so much.
All right.
The best thing ever.
Quick tweet that we're live. We are live.
And then a quick retweet.
Dr. Holiday Bean. Twitch.tv/Tauren Think Tank. All the things that we get to do as part of the promotional machine. Okay. Let's make sure we hear sounders. Do this in here. Let's see. Do you hear this?
This podcast is a part of the...
Okay. Hear that? Perfect.
Hello, Solomio.
Hi, Solomio. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. We are on a little bit of a timer to get Holiday rested and to bed at a decent hour. So we're not going to do a whole lot of warm up here. We're just going to just like jump in. I'm going to play the music and light the lights and, do the Muppet Show. So, you guys ready? It's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. Yes. All right. It's episode 269. Is that correct?
269.
Yeah.
That gave me a parody idea, Jules.
Oh, really?
That did. Oh, okay. Need to write that down real quick.
Write it down right now so you don't forget it. Okay. And this. Okay. Why am I froggy all of a sudden?
You talking about Kermit the Frog will make you froggy.
All right, we're going to roll. There's going to be music. I'm going to intro us, and we are going to begin. Episode 269 of Tauren Think Tank records in 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Tauren Think Tank, the podcast about the Blizzard gamer behind the keyboard.
It's episode 269 of Tauren Think Tank. Today is Wednesday. What? It's April 25th of 2018. What am I doing? I'm basically just depositing my brain someplace else. It's 2018, 8:07 p.m. My name is Jules. We are a little bit discombobulated tonight because of tech issues and all of that stuff, but we're getting there. And with me, as always, is my partner in crime, partner in Tauren Think Tank goodness. It's Mark Honan. Hi, Mark Honan.
Hello, Jules. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the special Hump Day edition of Tauren Think Tank.
Hump Day time.
We've got an awesome guest tonight. It's going to be fun. And I love having our guest and our guest spouse on the show because they are fantastic people. They're great to have lunch with in San Antonio. Yes, it's fantastic. I'm excited.
An amazing guest. You've seen her before on this show. We're going to bring her in right now. It is Dr. Holiday Bean back again. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Yay. Love being back.
You guys, we get so excited when Holiday is coming, and we apologize that we didn't have a show last week. We just had some scheduling snafus, and things went kind of like kitty wampus, if you want to put it that way. Kitty wampus. So we're recording on a Wednesday. Why? Because I'm heading to New Jersey tomorrow to go see Mama and Papa Jules. And it worked out well for Holiday anyway.
It also worked out for me because this afternoon I've got tickets for Infinity War on Saturday, but then I remembered, hey, I'm off of Triple T tomorrow. So now I have Thursday tickets as well. So
Oh,
I'm
you
excited.
do?
I do.
That's
I'm going
perfect.
Thursday night and then Saturday night, so it's going to be fantastic. So it
Fan-
worked out for everybody.
I gotta tell you, I'm actually seeing this movie. Like, it's like I think the first time I've gone to the movies at all this year.
Hey,
And
Wow.
well,
maybe
you
the
picked a good
third
one.
movie I've seen in the last 16 months at a movie theater.
So you're getting a babysitter. You're like, I am going out on a big girl date night to go see
Yeah.
Infinity War. What a
Dinner and a movie.
Oh,
Yes.
wait, be still my beating heart.
I
It's the
know.
1-2 punch.
I
Dinner and
know.
a movie.
It's an oldie but a classic.
Hey,
I-
I live and breathe by dinner and a movie. It's my favorite thing.
I'm excited. I'm going to New Jersey. My parents don't really watch superhero movies, so I'm going to need to wait until we come back from there to go see it. And I'm going to have to try to avoid all the spoilers on the internet at the same time.
You're going to
which would
just
be-
not be on the internet for the next
Probably
few
not.
days.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But that's fine. So we're going to jump right into the show. And because here's why we brought Dr. Bean back in. We have a topic that was brought to us by our dear fan, longtime fan, Tiber. It's an excellent letter, an excellent topic, and one that we really felt needed an expert discussion to really give it the best. So I'm going to read the letter. It's a discussion topic, and then we'll get into it. It says, "Hi, Jules and Marconin. I've had an idea for a possible Triple T discussion, and though I still feel it's kind of clunky, I thought I'd send it over and let you just to decide if it had any merit." Yes, it does. The topic on my mind is the electric scooter police, or rather, the tendency of so many of us to be self-appointed electric scooter police. To explain, a few years ago, when I first began using Twitter, one of the first people I followed was a woman who has a heart condition at an unusually young age. I could tell you her Twitter handle, but I don't know if she would want that attention focused on her. So we're going to call her Katie Derry. That's her anonymous name. She wrote about how with her symptoms, she could only enjoy a trip to a shopping mall with the use of only one of the electric scooters that the mall made available. Katie also wrote about how she was confronted several times by shoppers who were upset that such a young and obviously healthy woman was using a scooter. She became so anxious about the judgment that she would feel from other customers that it became hard for her to enjoy the rare chances to get out to the stores. Thanks to improved medical treatment, she's doing much better now, by the way. Naturally, I was pretty upset that these stupid people would be so mean and judgmental towards my Twitter friend. So later, when I was grocery shopping and I saw a man in the store riding one of those scooters, I was pretty disturbed when I realized my initial thoughts on seeing him were, those are for disabled people. Why does he need that? Maybe he wouldn't be so heavy if he got up and walked. Why? Why did I think this? I know nothing about this man's life, what pain he might be in. Even if he was just joyriding, I don't work at this store. Who the store lets ride those scooters is truly none of my business. I told myself, you are not the electric scooter police. The point I think Triple T could discuss isn't why Tiber is such a jerk, even though he's trying not to be. Rather, why is it so instinctive for many of us to try to police other people's behavior, even when we are in no way affected and that behavior is truly none of our business? I don't know if Triple T would want to open all the can of worms, but I think much of our strife over social issues comes from this drive people have to police everyone else's behavior. Issues like, who can people marry? What genders can people be? And which bathrooms they can use, for instance. I look forward to your thoughts on this. From Tiber.
Thanks, Tiber. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I gave this to Holiday and she went, ooh, I love it. So, I mean, I will raise my hand and I will say that I have done the electric scooter police thing.
I think we all have at some point or another.
Yeah.
Just errant mental thoughts. None of us are above it.
So I wanted when I read this letter and kind of what caught my attention, what I thought would be interesting from a science perspective, because I'm a big science geek, was looking at, so I thought we could talk about how we make decisions and how we make snap decisions and how our brain works. And I thought we'd want to start there to kind of understand why or how we become the electric scooter police.
I think
So
that's
perfect. So the first thing we need to understand is we have to look up something called heuristics. So every single day, we are inundated with decisions that we have to make. And a decision doesn't just have to be something like, who am I going to marry? It's as simple as, what shirt am I going to wear? Or which way am I going to turn? And every single decision you make uses a piece of your energy. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So to the point where, if you'll notice, when you go, the first time you go to a place that has a bathroom and there's more than one stall, you make a snap decision and you choose the third stall on the right. Every time you go back to that place, if there is no line, do you notice you go back to that same stall every single time?
Yeah.
That's because your brain's already made that decision one time, and now it's using heuristics, which are shortcuts, to get you back to that decision.
Yep.
Because it no longer wants to make that decision. That's also why when you go to a new place, when you're exploring, you're exhausted because you're inundated with all of these new experiences and these new decisions that you have to make. I will never forget the first time I checked out. I went to my graduate school and we were doing orientation. I came home, sat down, and drank a beer. And I just stared at the TV and I was just like, I'm not even absorbing what the TV's saying. I can't even talk on the phone. I was so mentally exhausted from making decisions, from meeting new people, from being inundated with all this new stimuli. It's exhausting.
It was a huge download. It was a huge
It's a
download
huge
to your
download.
brain.
It's a huge download. What a great way of putting it. Yes, it's a huge, huge download. So first we have to think about shortcuts for our brain.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, our brain makes thousands of these shortcuts, so we no longer have to make these decisions. So that also goes into the electric scooter police. We have something called schemas. So we have heuristics, and now we have schemas. So when we look at schemas are my husband, also the other Dr. Beam, is going to come over and say hi. Be a creeper.
Hi, creeper. He's really creeping. It's awesome.
Most creepy. We also have these things called schemas. And so the way schemas work, schemas are ideas of what certain things are and what they are not. So, for example, to my son, cats are small black things with pointy ears. Doesn't occur to him that when he sees the orange tabby down the street, that's not a cat. It's not a cat to him. He doesn't know what that is. And part of what growing up is when you incorporate these new ideas, thoughts, feelings into your experiences, your schemas expand.
Right.
And your mind is blown. So between shortcuts and these heuristics and these schemas, to me, what happens we make these snap judgments. So we have these ideas of what a disabled person looks like.
Right.
And so, typically I'm sure in our brains, when we think of someone who's disabled, we're thinking of someone who's wheelchair bound, who maybe looks off in some way. Missing a limb. Quasimodo is honestly what comes to my mind.
Yep.
You're seeing someone who doesn't fit into either a, physiotypical perspective or a neurotypical perspective.
Yeah.
And that just isn't the case. So anyway, that's my really long version of saying that's how the brain works.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense when you say with someone who has a non-visible disability that people will say to them, you don't look sick.
Yeah.
Yes. So we take these things and then we're going to expand our minds a little bit and we're going to use our critical thinking skills. Oh, I want to talk about social constructs. So schemas, social constructs, just kind of like fancy word for schemas, but our society has taught us what a disabled person looks like, or what a disabled person, probably more importantly or judgmentally, doesn't look like. Just like our social constructs are, if you're sick, you should stay home from school. But if you're very depressed, you should absolutely go to work and not tell anyone about it and just keep going.
Right.
So, as we're always talking about mental health and making sure you're taking care of yourself, it's always really important to think about these things and take both of these things into account.
Yeah.
So social constructs, of what we know of disabilities and what they are and what they are not, really important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
We really never know who's hurting on the inside or the outside, physically or mentally. And keeping those things in mind is really important.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting. I had just seen this last week. I don't know if either of you watch Bob's Burgers. I don't, but I read about this.
I watch it whenever I can catch it, but I don't have TV, so.
There was a bit of a controversy on one of the recent episodes of Bob's Burgers because they had shown or depicted someone with a emotional support animal in a way that was poking fun at that. And so there was a large backlash on that, kind of the way that it was handled, to say, the animal that I have that's my support animal, is not just because I can't walk or I'm blind. It's I have PTSD, I have severe anxiety and depression, and it sparked this entire debate about the ridiculousness, quote unquote, of people using some outlandish types of emotional support animals, like an emotional support goldfish on a plane or something like that. You know what I mean?
Or the peacock I saw.
Yeah, I heard about
the
peacock. Yeah.
Yep. And so I find, for me, it's very difficult for me to, like, I know there are people that buck the system, and that's the problem. I think that when we become the police, we want to be the righteous ones, right?
Sure, of course.
Definitely don't want to be the wrong ones.
But that whole disconnect, I feel like I don't want to just try to judge someone else's position of why they would need that animal to get them through that situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what is it your business?
Exactly.
It's kind of where, I mean, that's kind of how I go with, because I'm from Arkansas. We invented Walmart. So I see tons of people on those scooters. Every time I go to Walmart, we have one everywhere. And it doesn't bother me at all, because most people, there's some people who physically cannot walk that much and they need those scooters to get around. And I remember that, but I'm too busy dealing with my own stuff that it does not do me any good to worry about whether or not someone that's using something that I don't even use, it doesn't affect me, whether or not they use that scooter. It doesn't affect me. Now, if I was on the plane and the emotional support peacock had its feathers in my face, I might have a problem with it just because I'm right there in the thick of it. But just in the day-to-day, I mean, and there's one thing to have those snap comments in your head, and it's another to go out of your way to say it to those people, like what the person Tiber's talking about. It's one thing for you to kind of think those things in passing. I think you don't really do too much with it. I mean, you still have those thoughts, and that's something you need to work on anyway, to try and not put yourself in other people's shoes and try to, it doesn't really matter if they do, but if you go out of your way to tell that person you're too healthy to be in there, how do you
I would
know?
never
I'd never talk to someone like that.
Why do people do that shit?
I know.
Well, so
that's
okay,
like
so
5 steps further than I'd take it.
So this is the next step in this evolution of the science part of it.
Yeah.
You have to remember that, I've talked about the different parts of the brain, and, so quick lesson, this is your brain on drugs. Joke to me never gets old.
I know.
If you're old like me, it's funny. So the bottom line is this: the 3 main parts of our brain, back here, which is back here, you've got your reptilian brain. This is sleep, sex, food, shelter, walking, balance. Internally, so in here,
Top
we've
part of the head.
got, yeah, it's more like in, I can't really point it in there,
Like
but it's like
inside.
more in the middle.
Okay.
We've got the emotional part of the brain, and specifically the amygdala. And so, and the amygdala is all about logic, fear. It's the control center for a lot of the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the front up here, we've got something called the prefrontal cortex, and that's all about logic. So the emotional part of our brain, the reflexive part of our brain, so the snap judgment part of our brain, because remember, emotions are not logical, is not always connected to the top logical thinking part of our brain. That's why it's complicated.
Yeah.
That's why you can both feel like very judgmental and then also feel like a jerk for even thinking that, and hold those two pieces because we are complicated beings. So when sorry, I'm checking my notes because I totally took some last night.
Yeah.
When you're having these really emotional responses, they're not logical. And part of why I'm a huge advocate for being in therapy is learning, just because your feelings are not facts, and your facts are not your feelings. So it's really learning how to both feel something and maybe convey that appropriately, but also know that that may not be everyone else's reality.
Yeah.
And
The way so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, the way I kind of think of it, the way you're explaining it, the way I kind of go with it is like I filter my feelings through the facts. Like for me, whenever I get those, I have those feelings, but then I try to filter them through, okay, maybe this is going on or that's going on.
So you're filtering them through what your experiences are, and you're filtering them through what your reality is. So, for example, your Tiber. All right, that guy or girl. The electric scooter police. So here they are going about their day, totally fine, and they have this Twitter friend who they know does not have a visible illness or disability, but knows that they have them. And then they still go about and have this kind of judgmental day. They obviously didn't stop to say anything to that person, but it stops them to think.
Yeah.
So this is where experience is huge. Being able to take a step back out of yourself and recognize that, hey, maybe you don't know everything. And regardless of the fact that they had that thought, the fact that they were able to take a step back and go, I probably need to check myself, is way bigger and way better than having that thought in the first place. I almost commend them for having that thought because it allowed them to take a step back.
Yeah.
And this is a really big moment to say, one, we all have to give ourselves a lot more grace and kindness. But more importantly than that, we have to learn, we're never going to stop judging. It's reflexive. It's part of the limbic system. The amygdala is in the limbic system, and the limbic system is the emotional part of our brain.
Right.
My brain was going to get there, I promise. It's been a day. It's full of emotions. My limbic system's like, I'm offline now, guys. I'm out. But this is the point. It's like we have to be able to recognize that we're going to feel things, and that's okay. Now it's what do we do with those feelings? Do we start a conversation? Do we yell at someone? Do we maybe take a step back and decide to kind of contemplate and have discussion with ourselves later?
Yeah.
You have many options. There's a lot of things that we could do between going up and saying something to that person or not doing anything at all.
Right.
There's a whole list of other things that we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that it bothered them enough that not only did they take some time to think about it themselves, they took time to write to you. and that spawned this episode. I mean, look at all the things that are going to continue to occur because of the thought process.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's crazy though when I think of all of the people in my experience who would literally go from judgment to reaction, emotional reaction without that step in between. And
yes. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. It's that reaction. And a lot of what I do with my patients in therapy is take a step back to recognize that it's oftentimes what you're doing in therapy is learning how to not be so reactive.
right.
We often talk about being either, something called dysregulated or reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it's like you're all out of sorts and you have absolutely no control over your emotions. And you're just, spewing out your emotional experience like it's facts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm angry, so you're wrong. And it's like, whoa, man.
That doesn't follow.
That's just because you're mad doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Exactly.
Usually means the opposite.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's
taking those steps back is huge.
My therapist had actually mentioned it's The Work by Byron Katie. You've heard of that, I'm sure, probably.
I'm sure I have.
And it's basically what this it's called The Work, and you're supposed to do the work, and fill out what's called a judge your neighbor sheet. And you fill this out, and it's this like step-by-step thing of filling it out. So if you think about someone who you feel has wronged you, and you list it all out, and it's like this is how I feel that this person has wronged me. This is what I want them to know. This is what I want them to, because you have created a judgment. You have created this reaction to how you feel you have been wronged. Just as that person who is the electric scooter police is like, you have wronged me, and I'm going to tell you why I think you're wrong because I feel so strongly about it. You do this worksheet, and then it turns it back on you. And it says, now, when you think about your statements of, like, Marconin did this thing to me, and I feel like he needs to know how badly he hurt my feelings. And it turns it back around and says, do you think Marconin meant to hurt you? Do you think, it's these questions of, like, changing your perspective on things. And so when we did this work with my therapist, it was like, yeah, I kind of do this already. So it wasn't like I had necessarily like needed a ton of that work done. But I thought of so many people in my life who could benefit from something like that. And I was like, this is the judgment sheet. It's the thing.
but you have to think about it. When you are dysregulated, when you are reactive, the limbic system is in charge. The logical part of your brain, it's no longer in charge.
Right.
So you can't think logically. You can't read that worksheet and go, oh, he didn't mean to hurt me. You're going to read that and go, F that guy. He totally meant it.
Right.
And listen, 9 times out of 10, they didn't. But there's that 10th time where you're like, they told.
They could.
So it's also about being able to be calm and present and in control of your emotions and not having your emotions control you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you're yelling at someone riding an electric scooter, odds are the limbic system's in charge.
Yeah.
just a little bit. You're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
And that is the worst, because usually then you'll see that person just go bleh and just like explode all over everything. And then if you're lucky, they go back and go, oh, that was kind of bad.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And if you're not, they're sitting there still thinking how righteous they are and how wronged you are.
Can we have that be the name of the title? You're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yes. That's a great statement.
Absolutely, because that
Hey,
I've had a friend.
No.
I had a friend who sent me a message once. He was very much like into getting into Twitter fights with people. It was a situation where someone would make a statement, he would engage and tell them why they were wrong, and they would become this major argument because neither person was listening to the other. And then it would usually wind up in like one of them being blocked or just, the thing. And so they sent me a message. He sent me a message and he said, how do you not get into that stuff? How do you not engage when
Years
people
of therapy.
are so desperately wrong? And my response to that was, it's not my job to tell them they're wrong. It's
Beautiful.
not. It's not my job to tell them that.
But I also want you to layers. There's always layers to
Right.
this. So one, part of, me, I always bring it back to trauma because I think we all have a little PTSD. To me, someone who's getting into all those fights is, one, probably kind of stuck in fight, as in fight, flight, or freeze. So something to kind of think about. And, we replay these things. We consistently put ourselves in these positions until those things are played out.
Right.
And there's also this aspect of not being heard. So I don't know if somewhere in their childhood, somewhere in their past, they were consistently not heard, not acknowledged, not validated. Their experience in that moment, all they want is to be validated and to have, it's not that, most of the time, it's not that we really need someone to agree with our perspective and tell us that we're right. We just need our perspective acknowledged, that it's being heard.
Yeah.
That it's a possibility.
Right.
I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need you to have the same opinion as me. Just acknowledge that my opinion exists and it's valid.
Yes.
I'm just going to tell you, and you just smile and nod.
Yeah. And it's like,
Okay.
oh yeah, like, because it goes back to the couple who constantly, I've had a bad day. My husband's had a bad day. My partner's had a bad day. And then it's, well, I did this, this, and this. And instead of the partner just going, God, that sounds so rough. That's so crappy. They're like, well, I did this. And then it turns into a bigger dick contest. Who wins? No one. And then everyone walks away mad. But if you take a second and go, wow, that's really awful. God, I'm so sorry. And then they tend to take a step back and go, you're right. It is awful. Now what happened with you? Then they can hear it.
Yeah, they just needed to be heard and acknowledged.
Yes, and so those people who are yelling at this electric scooter police, a lot of times they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
You're wrong, and then then it's like, listen, do I need to show you my fake heart or the fact that I can't breathe or whatever?
You need a doctor's note for your approval?
No. So this is part of the other part I wanted to talk about too, because it's not just the people who are yelling at. It's not just the electric scooter police. It's the offenders.
Right.
So it's the people who have these unspoken or not visual enough disabilities. Like I have a sister who is on the autism spectrum. She's on the much more, unfortunately, lower functioning end. Visually, she looks fine. And so oftentimes, but she's not neurotypical at all. She doesn't speak. And, she's still in diapers and she's in her 20s and she's the love of our lives. And, we'll go to restaurants and she's just like, ah! Kind of doing like her little voice things that she does. And I'll never forget one time we were in Chili's and this woman turned around and she was like, can you shut that child up? My sister was probably like 10 or 11. So again, she looks like she should be able to contain herself.
Yeah.
But she can't. And we're in Chili's. This isn't exactly fine dining. And take it down a notch, lady.
Yeah. Sit down,
Sorry,
shut up, and enjoy your baby back ribs.
Right? So we ended up getting kind of into an altercation with this woman about it. And we're like, she has autism. She can't help it. Back off. But you can't tell. And so instead of that woman, if she had an issue, bringing it up, hey, what's going on? That yelling, that incessant, that angry tone, it's just unnecessary. There are there are times where you just don't, just because someone looks like they can doesn't mean they can.
Right.
And doesn't mean they should be expected to either.
Right.
So part of this and part of what I want us to kind of talk about is when you are the person with the disability, it's about being confident and self-aware. So we're not going to be able to stop all the electric scooter police.
No.
And I really wish we could. But I think it's really important to remember and recognize that you are important, your disability is valid, and you in no way should be stopped from experiencing life in any capacity because of some dysregulated electric scooter police.
Right. Yeah, I've always kind of wanted the guidance in for those who are, for the example in our letter, a girl who physically cannot walk for long distances, looks fine on the outside but can't, and gets confronted by someone who makes some kind of comment like that. And on the internet, they'd consider that to be a troll, right? Like, you'd be
sure,
that's an internet troll, and you'd be like shut down. Now, this person is actually in your physical presence, in your face, your sister being yelled at by a woman in the restaurant kind of thing. And so then there's the emotional reaction on your side.
Sure.
So those that have had to deal with this over and over, I would guess, get some really good practice. But what kinds of tips can you give for someone, this poor girl was afraid to go out because she was afraid to be judged, afraid to be treated poorly.
So part of this, my recommendation, part of it would be, as always, get into therapy. If you're feeling guilty about yourself, if you're feeling angry at yourself, if you're feeling ashamed of who you are, therapy. That's some deep work that needs to be addressed and needs to be dealt with and needs to be worked on head on, because you are who you are and you're beautiful because of who you are. And we also don't know what experiences you need or they need to get through this life.
Right.
So part of it's going to be therapy, and it's really working on your self-confidence. I think you're absolutely right, Jules, in that we're not going to be able to stop all of them, and you're going to get a lot of practice. Mm-hmm. But it's being able to stand up to bullies is what stops bullies.
Right.
Because that's what these people are. They're bullies.
Yeah.
They're judgmental and uneducated bullies.
Kind of rude.
Very rude.
Really freaking rude to run up to somebody like that. Why can't you walk?
Well, and also, talk about poor boundaries. Like, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
So part of that therapy and that work is going to be able to shake off some of that and just to go, I have a disability, and scooter on, my friend, scooter on.
Yeah.
But it's also going to be building in that self-confidence to be able to say that, and not feeling pressured by others people's standards. Mm-hmm. But the other thing I'd really encourage really the world to do is to get out and explore, despite being exhausted by, the head-on stimuli and the schemas and the heuristics and whatever. But get out and explore, because the more you are exposed to, the more you have the ability to tolerate all these incredible things. Your schemas expand, your minds are blown. Cats can be any color.
Yes.
But, if your world is this big and all fits into this circle, you're not going to know a whole lot.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you go out, then you're going, maybe also it's more about creating the emotional pause. I have these feelings. I feel very emotional. I feel very dysregulated. I feel very upset. And then it's the pause. So just because I feel it doesn't mean I need to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
So pause. Do I need to say that? Do I? Maybe, maybe I'm kind of curious. Do I want to ask?
Yep. Yeah. I
Start
mean,
a dialogue.
learning versus
Yeah.
accusing.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. I found that, when I was young, I moved from living on the East Coast to moving to the Midwest. I was 21. And my mind blew when I moved out of where my little circle was. Same thing for holiday. I mean, you went
Oh
from,
my God.
you've lived in different parts of the country your entire life. So,
I
and
live in Texas.
and
You need a passport to come here.
yeah, you do. And you
She
need
says judgmentally.
a crowbar to expand the minds of some folks in Texas. I will generalize that.
Totally. But then there were things that I really found that I was so judgmental on.
Really?
Texas is actually a really cool place to live. And turns out there's also a lot of, dare I say, liberal-minded people here.
Uh-huh.
And there are also people who, I'm from LA, and when my husband and I moved here, we just kept looking around. We're like, why is everyone being so nice to us? Where's
Yeah.
the joke? Where's the cameras?
Mhm.
And we had such a slanted view of the world, and you're on your own and nobody's going to help you because LA is all about your own personal hustle.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so we got here and people were just nice to be nice. It was bizarre.
Weird,
Yes.
isn't it?
It's so weird.
Very
Still
weird.
blows my mind. And it took me a long time to even kind of remotely even trust that.
Yep.
Because it's just,
Seems
Same.
sketchy, yeah.
Same.
yeah, because
I came from New Jersey. If you don't make eye contact with people, well, actually, if you do make eye contact with a stranger on the street, you're asking for trouble.
yeah,
So-
you're going to steal their wallet or they're going to steal
Yeah, or
yours.
you're threatening them. So I spent my entire childhood looking down at my feet when I was walking around any stranger that I didn't know. And then I
So
moved to
these
the
are all-
Midwest, and they're all thinking I'm standoffish and judgmental.
Yeah. I
Totally.
mean, in the South,
Totally.
if you make contact eyes with a stranger, you just nod and say, "How's it going?"
Yeah.
Or "How are you?"
Which-
You like
which
you.
just means hello. We don't
It
actually
just means
care.
hello. Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, that's
Maybe we
just
do.
how it
I
goes.
don't
Like
know.
yesterday, I was leaving a client's house, and a couple on a golf cart drove by and made eye contact with the guy. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Good. How are you?" And he was like, "Good." He just drove away.
Yeah.
It's just pleasantries.
Really?
I mean, and as far as the political affiliation, it's almost like we have our own minds down here, and we can make our own decisions instead of being a broad generalization.
Yeah.
And the same thing could
Yeah.
be said for my old opinions of LA. There's people of
Totally.
all stripes and colors and creeds everywhere.
Yeah.
But it takes us expanding our point of view and our experiences and getting in contact with these different cultures and different groups of people that really, remind us that, hey, guess what, folks? We're all human. Everybody's human.
Yeah.
And and that's really the most important part. Expand your mind, think critically, question. Give yourself opportunities to learn about different social constructs because they're very different. In the South, they're very different from LA, different
Yeah.
from New Jersey, different from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so being able to look at these different experiences in these different places, go to these different places, go outside of the United States, meet people from other countries, visit other places in the world,
Yeah.
and learn about, and not that we want to turn this into like a bigger dick contest, because we don't, but different people struggle differently
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
The to be human is to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all suffer differently, but we all kind of suffer the same.
Yeah.
It's one thing
And
that holds
so-
us all together in
Yeah,
some way.
yeah. And we all have problems, and so it's really the human experience is one that is universal. We all suffer, we all bleed, and we all feel pain, whether it's physical or emotional.
Mhm.
And hopefully, if you're listening, you're going to take away from this a moment to the next time you have a judgment, because that's not going to stop. We're all judgers. Or in college, my friends and I used to use the word judger all the time, and then this kid I was in class with looked at me and said, don't you mean judge? Now, grammatically, he was absolutely correct, and that blew my little mind and made me really mad. But he was totally judging me because I thought I was being funny. Anyway,
He was judging your judger comment.
he was totally being. He was a judge. He was a judger for my judging. It's awful.
He was a grammar police.
He was the grammar police. So whether you're the grammar police or the electric scooter police, bottom line is when you notice yourself judging, take a step back.
Right.
Is it helpful to judge? And is it making me feel better to judge? And like what it's not, sometimes it's not necessarily the why that matters. It's what do we do with it?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's recognizing, you know, like, okay, cool. Like, listen, I'm judging her skirt or I'm judging that person in the scooter. Is that helping me? Is that serving them? Do I want to do anything with that? And sometimes it's just an errant thought because that's what we do because of heuristics and schemas and thought processes. But it's what do we do from that? You know, we really don't know. And all disability, you know, no disability is great, and we all deal with them differently, and we all kind of have different things that make us different. So, but I think ultimately it's treating people with kindness and respect and checking yourself.
Yeah.
This is an incredible opportunity to take a step outside of yourself and think.
Yeah.
Is that serving? Is that thought serving me? Is that thought serving anyone else? Do I want to learn more? Do I have some questions? Not in an accusatory way, but curiosity.
Yeah.
Starting dialogue, having a hard conversation.
Yeah. I mean, you know, one thing is like if you see somebody that's pausing for something, ask them is like, hey, do you need me to get something down up there for you? Is there, you know, how, you know, yeah, I mean, you can be judgy and angry at someone or you get those snap judgments, but it doesn't help you. It doesn't keep you from helping them. You know, that's a good way to turn it around instead of, you know, it's almost like, you know, if you see a con man and you just be like, you're like, oh, I see you're trying to go over. It's kind of like when one time someone approached me at a gas station in college and they were like, oh, my family, my kids are in the van and I need gas money to get to my family in Missouri. So I gave him like $10 in gas. You know, I was very I was like, okay, yeah, you know, you got me. I'll give you $10. And then like 2 or 3 months later, same guy.
Yeah.
Same guy, like different gas station, same guy, same van. And he came up to me again. And I recognized him. I recognized him immediately. And he was like, excuse me, sir. I was like, oh, hey, man, how are you? And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, man, I know you wanted to get up to your grandmother's because of her funeral or I forgot what it is. It was like, were you able to get there okay? Because, man, I really hope you're able to because I know how important that is to you. And I called him on it. And he got nervous and walked away because he's like, oh, that's not me. And I was like, no, I recognize your van. Are your kids okay? I know they were in the back seat. You know, I gave him his spiel back to him. Just, you know, because I could have said, yeah, I gave you money before.
Sure.
I could have been that guy, but I was like, no,
what a great opportunity.
I'm gonna play into his game just to see if he's for real.
Right.
Good for you.
Just to see if he's for real or not. And you could do that with, like, for instance, the shopping cart police. You know, ask them, hey, do you need help can I get you something off the top shelf, or is there anything I can get you? Because I know it's tough being in that scooter. I just want to help. You know, and then you can. I mean, yeah, you may be trying to call them on it, but you're also doing a kind act. So,
well, and I think you bring up an interesting point too, because it's not just about, you know, whatever reason they're using it. Most of the time, people don't really want to feel different.
No.
So yes. Are there people who are going to buck the system?
Yeah.
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 We know that's true.
You that again, part of human life. That's what happens. Not everyone's trying to buck the system, but, you know, I've been approached in the past from people who want letters for, you know, they want to say that their animals are therapy animals. And, you know, unless they're patients of mine, I'm not going to write them a letter.
Yeah.
So, you know, because most of the time, like when people approach me about that and they're not in therapy with me, it's usually because they just don't want to pay for their animal on the plane.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's something to consider and to think about and to deal with. But for my actual patients who are suffering from those issues and need the animals, sure, not a problem. Happy to do it. So it is interesting to look at people don't want to be different. You know, do you think they really like driving around on a scooter and having all these judging eyes on them? Do you think
Probably
they
not.
probably not, you know? And then they're, doing the best they can to take something off the top and they can't do it. And now they've got to ask for help. So that they're already setting themselves apart. They're already different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's those that I think for us, there's two parts of it. Number one is that we don't want to see the person taking advantage of other people in those situations. So like if let's say you see someone who you feel is not physically needing of that scooter, so your judgment goes, you don't need that scooter, and you could be taking it away from someone who really does need it. Or
the hypothetical person.
that feeling of that, you are the reason why we can't have nice things, and that's where we get righteous and want to protect our fellow man. And I get that part, where Marconin is, in the situation where someone is scamming him, he doesn't want that to happen to somebody else. When we were in San Antonio 2 years ago, we had someone come up to us wanting to use our phone, someone's phone, and she was clearly scamming to steal the phone. Because it was it was at night, we were walking on the street, and it was just and people were like, no, do not give this girl your phone. They do this in airports. I've seen this at the same thing where there's the lone girl who stands there and says, I need your phone, when there's a payphone 10 blocks, 10 steps away. And
happened to me in Chicago.
It happened to you in Chicago. So we are also prone to want to protect ourselves and to protect others.
And protect others.
Yeah. Which is why all those decisions that you talked about on the top of the show become so difficult. I will stress about that girl that came up to me and I told her no, because what if she really needed my help and I told her no and I was the bad person?
So part of this is, a lot of times I think it's really important to listen to your intuition.
Right.
And listen, that illogical, that irrational, that emotional part of your reflexive brain, because that's your intuition talking. And if you're like, something's up, listen to it.
Yep.
If there was, you can only do what you can do in those moments, and you're going to make snap decisions.
Yep.
And whatever you're influenced by in those moments are going to change and shape those moments. And, unfortunately, you're going to be burdened by this. What if she really needed it for the rest of your life?
Right.
I wouldn't lose sleep over it. I suspect she's okay.
Yeah. I mean, my logical mind will say it's a scam. My emotional mind is saying, what if your intuition is wrong?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that's
that's where therapy comes in handy, because learning how to get rid of that gaslighting.
I know. It's the worst. So it's just an interesting thought, because when we are thinking about being just and right, and that someone is bucking the system to cause, to come to you and ask for an emotional support animal to basically not have to pay fees to go on the plane. That will get my ire up, because I hate that,
Yeah.
And it's so there's that feeling of wanting to judge those people.
Totally. And that's where learning how to deal with it, and learning to trust your intuition, learning to broaden your horizons. And, the more experiences you have, the more opportunities you have to learn to trust your intuition, to expand those schemas, to be able to listen and learn, and you go from there.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is this: we make the best decisions we can with the information we have at the time.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that, 2 years from now, 6 months from now, 50 years from now, we may have better information and go, really wish I'd given that girl my phone.
Oh, well.
Can't do anything about it now.
Yeah.
Nope.
Because you made the best decision you could with the information you had at the time.
Right. Right. And so I feel like we've given some tools tonight to help people cope with both their own snap judgments, and also if you are in a position where people are judging you wrongly, Was there anything else from your notes that we didn't cover?
I think we covered it all. Don't feel pressured by other people's standards. I wrote that one down.
That's
there you go.
Point.
Oh yeah, and remembering our judgments are not reality. Just because we feel doesn't mean that's the truth.
Yes.
Yep.
Gosh, that's so true.
Yep. Feelings are not necessarily the truth.
I've learned so much, having a judgment about someone and then learning the truth behind the situation and they don't match up is such a mind expanding experience. If you allow yourself to have it. Yeah.
And that's key. If you allow yourself to have it.
Right.
You have to be open and willing to allow yourself to have it means you have to admit you are wrong.
Yes.
I'm never wrong. That's impossible.
No, you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why.
Show title.
Yeah.
It's going to be the longest show title of all time.
Oh,
well, I think that's a great place to wrap up on. We were going to say we're going to wrap up around 9:00, and I think we're right there.
Yeah.
We did great.
This discussion was everything. I really greatly enjoyed this. I think it was awesome. Dr. Bean and I were talking prior to the show about some additional topics we'd like to talk about on future shows, and so we're going to work on getting that scheduled in the future. Hopefully working out good schedule times for everybody when life isn't such a cluster. It's
going to slow down. It'll be fine.
It has to. Holiday, how can people reach out to you and send you feedback? Right now, you don't use Twitter a ton, so...
I don't use Twitter a ton. I think you could... What's my Twitter handle?
It's Doc Holiday Sidey is your Twitter handle.
That's probably the best way.
Yeah, and you guys can also email us, and we can email her.
I think that's the best way.
Okay, good.
Yeah. That's probably the best way.
Tony's on Facebook. He's on Twitter and stuff. But
What's my husband's Twitter? That would really go. Oh my God! Hey, can I talk to your wife?
We're actually planning on trying to get both Holiday and Tony on with Marconin and I, so it would be 4 of us on the show together. It would be fantastic.
That would be great.
Yeah,
that would.
So we're gonna wrap that up here. You can find the show at torrenthinktank.com. That's where you find all of our episodes. Find Marconin on Twitter at MarconинWow. Find me at JulesRPG and the show at Tauren Think Tank. We will be back next Thursday at our normal time of 8:00 Central. Normal day, normal time. For the time being, as long as nothing crazy happens and my trip goes fine.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Awesome. My dad in the chat room just said, see in a few hours. So.
Nice.
Holiday
give them. I was going to say, give Mama and Papa Jules a hug for me.
I will certainly do that. They're super. I haven't seen them since September, so it's going to be a great trip.
Jeez.
I know.
It's time.
It is
yes.
overdue. Holiday, thank you for being with us tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. I love being a part of this.
Great to have you on again.
Marconin, we'll see you next week, and I'm going to play us out with our outro. Have a great night. /moo, everybody.
/moo, guys.
Tauren Think Tank. We make your problems less bad.
This podcast is a part of the Signals Media All-Star Network. For more information on this and other fine shows, go to signalsmedia.com. It's okay to stick our stuff in your ears. Really?
Really?
All
right. Yay. And the chat room is saying thank you. Tiber says, thank you, Dr. Bean, Jules, and Marconin. You've given me a lot to think about. Bim says, thank you, Dr. Bean. Yes. So you were very helpful. We had about 12 people watching us live while we were doing this.
We had how many?
12.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yes, it's not our normal night, so we tend to get a little bit more on our normal night, which is no big deal. So, all right, chat room, we're gonna get out of here, and the show's gonna post in an hour or so. We'll put it up right after we get done here. So, We will see you guys on Thursday and have a wonderful week. Slash moo.
Slash me, guys. Take care.